Attorney General, you've told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fani Willis' office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
Well, I'm going to say again, we do not control those offices. They make their own decisions.
The question is whether you communicate with them, not whether you control them. Do you communicate with them, and will you provide those communications?
If you make a request, we'll refer it to our Office of Legislative Affairs.
But see, here's the thing. You come in here and you lodge this attack that it's a conspiracy theory, that there is coordinated lawfare against Trump. And then when we say, fine, just give us the documents, give us the correspondence, and then if it's a conspiracy theory, that will be evident. But when you say, well, we'll take your request, and then we'll sort of work it through the DOJ's accommodation process, then you're actually advancing the very dangerous conspiracy theory that you're concerned about. Now, you were a judge, once nominated the highest court in our country. When you were a judge, I'm just curious, did you ever make political donations to partisan candidates?
No.
No, and you didn't because that would create the potential appearance of impropriety.
I didn't because there's a federal rule barring federal judges from making contributions.
Right, but under that same theory of attacks on the judicial process, like, shouldn't someone be owed like a jury of their peers and a judge that's non-biased rather than getting a judge from your political opponent's donor file?
I'm well aware that you're not asking a hypothetical. You're asking me to comment on a jury verdict in another jurisdiction which has to be respected. I won't comment on it. That case is still ongoing. The defendant
Mr. Attorney General, I hadn't asked you about the verdict yet. We were getting there. I was talking about the judge. And so let me ask you this question about your time as a judge. Was there ever a time when you were a judge when you had a family member who was personally profiting off of the notoriety of a case that was before your court?
Look, I'm going to say again, it's very clear you're asking me to comment on a case in another jurisdiction.
No, wait, hold on, Mr. Attorney General. Did you ever have a family member profit off of the notoriety of any case that you sat over?
Say again, you're asking
yes or no?
You're asking me to comment on a case currently.
Well, it seems you're connecting the dots, Mr. Attorney General. I'm just asking you as to a general principle, but you are aware that Judge Merchan's daughter was profiting off of this prosecution. You are aware that that creates the appearance of impropriety. You know the very reason there's a federal rule against judges giving donations is because it is the very attack on the judicial process that we're concerned about.
I'm sorry, I don't agree with anything you just said, but I'm not going to comment on it.
Okay, so you won't comment on it, Mr. Attorney General, but you had no problem dispatching Matthew Colangelo. Who's Matthew Colangelo?
That is false. I did not dispatch Matthew Colangelo.
Matthew Colangelo became the Assistant Attorney General at the very beginning of the Biden administration. Without having been Senate confirmed, goes and gets this senior role at the DOJ, and then after, I believe it's Gupta replaces Colangelo, Colangelo makes this remarkable downstream career journey from the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and then pops up in Alvin Bragg's office to go get Trump. And you're saying that's just a career choice that was made that has nothing to do with the lawfare coordinated by the DOJ.
I'm saying it's false. I did not dispatch Mr. Colangelo anywhere.
Well, do you know how he ended up there?
I assume he applied for a job there and got the job.
But see, you know what?
I can tell you I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you might not have had anything to do with it, but we've got this contemporaneous evidence in Mr. Pomerantz's book. So Pomerantz writes this book, which I'm sure you're aware of, where he says, we put together the legal eagles to get Trump. We got all these folks together and we assembled them for that purpose. And so when we on the Judiciary Committee think about attacks on the judicial process, our concern is that the facts and the law aren't being followed. A target is acquired, here, Trump, and then you assemble the legal talent from DOJ, Mr. Pomerantz, and you bring everybody in to get him. And meanwhile, the judge is making money on it. The judge is making money on it, or the judge's family's making money on it for stuff that you yourself wouldn't do. You know, no one's going to buy this. No one's going to believe it. It's going to create great disruption. And I am saddened by it because, like you, I've given my life to the law. I care deeply about the law. And I think that the lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service. I see my time's expired. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Garland, why Jack Smith? Why'd you pick him?
Well, I've said at the time I appointed Mr. Smith, I explained he was independent. He was a longtime career prosecutor
But there are probably other people who you would describe as independent, long-time career prosecutor. Why did you pick, this is probably the most high-profile special counsel investigation, maybe in American history. You're going to be investigating a former president, a candidate for president, and leading in all the polls, and you pick Jack Smith. Most important selection maybe ever made from Attorney General when you come to a special counsel. I just want to know why you could have picked
Well, I'm telling
former
you
AGs, deputy AGs, U.S. attorneys. You got all kinds of lawyers in this town, but you picked Jack Smith.
all the people you just mentioned would be political appointees. I appointed somebody who was not a political appointee, somebody who was independent, nonpartisan, with a record of career experience as a prosecutor. That seemed to me the perfect resume for making that kind of.
He was a guy, had to bring him back from Europe. He worked at the ICC, worked at the World Court. He was the best pick for the most high-profile investigation ever.
He was independent. He was nonpartisan. He had never held a political office. He was never appointed in a political office.
Was he your first choice?
He had a long career as a career
Was he your first choice?
I'm not going to go into the questions.
Did you know him before you picked him?
I did not.
You never worked with him?
I did not.
Did you meet with him prior to announcing his selection and tell him what was going on?
Of course I did.
What happened in that meeting?
I met with him. I asked him if he would be willing to do this. We talked about my understandings of the role of this office, which are on the public record. That's all.
Did he ask for the job?
This is not a job I don't think anybody asks for. I'm sorry.
No, but that's not the question I asked you. I said, did Jack Smith ask for the job?
He did not ask me for the job, no.
Did he convey through someone else that he wanted the job?
I would be surprised if that were the case, but
But you don't know?
No, I don't know.
So he may have?
I can only tell you what I know. I chose him because he had a record of impartial career experience as a prosecutor. That's why he was chosen.
Was it impartial when he went after Governor McDonnell?
He was a member of the...
He was after Governor McDonnell. That case gets appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court unanimously said it was wrong and overturns the conviction?
He was in the public integrity section of the Justice Department, a career position. They made the decisions they thought were warranted, and we respect the decision of the Supreme Court.
Did the fact that he was interested in going after the very people who were targeted by the IRS about a decade ago, did that have any influence on your selection? Okay, let's put up this slide here. This is from Jack Smith to some other folks in the Justice Department, and it says, could we ever charge a conspiracy to violate laws of the U.S. for misuse of such nonprofits to get around existing campaign finance laws? Jack Smith was looking to prosecute the very people who were targeted by the Obama IRS.
I don't know. You have excerpts from an email I've never seen. You should know that
IRS Commissioner Sarah, I'm just asking, did this weigh into your decision? Did you know about this?
No,
what Jack Smith was trying to do?
I also don't know if it's true now.
IRS Commissioner Sarah Ingram oversees this from Jack Smith himself. Let's discuss tomorrow, but maybe we should try to set up a meeting this week. And here's the response. Here's the response. You didn't get your meeting with Miss Ingram from the IRS, but she's sending the head of the exempt organizations, Lois Lerner, who's known to us. So Jack Smith meeting with Lois Lerner, looking for ways to prosecute the very people who were victims of the Obama IRS. And I'm just asking, did that factor in your decision to name Jack Smith as special counsel?
I didn't have any idea about the things.
Didn't know about that?
No, and I don't know whether they're true now by looking at this.
Well, they're definitely true, but you didn't know about it. But this guy was so important, you have to bring him from Europe back here to go after President Trump, name him as a special counsel. Do you regret the pick?
I'm sorry,
Do you regret picking him?
No, I do not regret picking him.
Well, prosecutors aren't supposed to tamper with evidence, and it looks like that's what he did. He changed the sequence of the documents that he seized from Mar-a-Lago.
I'm sorry, that's a false characterization, but that is ongoing.
Here's what he said to the court, Mr. Attorney General. There are some boxes where the order of items within the box is not the same as in the associated scans. I mean, he said it. I didn't say it. He told the court that.
Now you're asking me to comment on a discovery dispute that's ongoing in a court. I don't know the facts of it, and I'm not going to comment on it.
No, this is from Jack Smith filing with the court. He admitted to the court that they tamper with the evidence. He mishandled the very documents he's charging President Trump with mishandling. And I'm just asking, do you regret picking this guy as the special counsel in the most important special counsel investigation probably in American history?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the words tamper in the statement that Mr. Smith filed. He did not use those words.
Well, let me ask it this way. Are you supposed to change the order of the documents that you seize and the physical documents don't match up with the scanned documents? Are you supposed to do that as a prosecutor?
This is a matter in dispute, in discovery in that court, and I'm going to leave it for the district court to make a determination. After
I would just say one last thing. It's not in dispute. This is what he said in the court filing. Jack Smith's team said that to the judge in the court. By the way, this case is now basically on hold because they've screwed up so many things.
Again, I don't know whether your description of the facts are true or not true, and I'm not going to intrude in a decision in a district court.
I have unanimous consent request.
Gentleman has unanimous consent request.
I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record an amicus brief by the former Attorney General Edwin Meese.
Without objection?
The question presented is whether private citizen Jack Smith lacks authority to represent the United States. I also ask unanimous consent to submit for the record an article titled, "Was it legal to appoint Jack Smith in the first place?" This is a Heritage publication.
Without objection?
I want to start by reading you the appointment clause of the Constitution. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 6 states, "The President shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States, whose appointments are not herein otherwise provided for, and which shall be established by law." Are U.S. attorneys nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate according to this appointments clause?
They are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate.
Wouldn't you agree that U.S. attorneys are held to the appointments clause because they are delegated some part of the sovereign power of the United States, such as the ability to make indictments and charge individuals with crimes?
I would say that those are not the reasons why, and a court has already ruled on the question of whether special counsels are subject to the appointments clause in the Mueller case, and ruled that they were not. Was
Jack Smith nominated by President Biden or confirmed by the U.S. Senate?
Look, you're asking me about a case, again, motions filed as just
This
cited
is a
in
simple
another.
question.
No, I'm not
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden?
No, he was not.
Was he confirmed by the Senate?
No, he was not.
When was the special counsel statute passed?
There is no special counsel statute. There was an independent counsel statute that was expired.
So it expired. So what gives you the authority to appoint a special counsel? You've created an office in the U.S. government that does not exist without authorization from Congress.
There are regulations under which the Attorney General appoints special counsel. They've been in effect for 30 years, maybe longer, under both parties. The matter that you're talking about whether somebody can have an employee of the Justice Department serve as special counsel has been adjudicated.
You appealed, let me interrupt for a second, because you appealed to a regulation, a rule, whereas the Constitution says shall be established by law.
Yeah, the statutes.
Right, the statute, but you referred to a regulation, not to U.S. code.
May I answer? The regulation cites the two U.S. Code provisions that permit the Attorney General's appointment. Attorney General Barr cited to the same ones.
Are you familiar?
Even Attorney General Meese did that.
All right. Are you familiar with former Attorney General Meese's amicus brief?
No.
You're not?
I know that he's filed one because I read it in the newspapers, but otherwise I'm not familiar with it. But
well, he raises some good questions that I agree with in there. It seems like you've created an office that would require an act of Congress, yet there's not an act of Congress that authorizes that. And even if it didn't require an act of Congress, and you've already admitted it, there was no act of Congress that established this office, it would still require, according to the Constitution, a nomination by the President and confirmation by the Senate. I want to move on to January 6th. Is it accurate to say that the DOJ is on pace to arrest roughly one protester a day in 2024, nearly 3 years after the incident?
I don't know what the pace is. The job is to arrest and bring to justice people who are criminally responsible, and as they are found, they will be arrested.
Is your office preparing to drop charges against more than 340. January 6th, there's charged with 1512C2 and released dozens from prison on that count. If the Supreme Court this month reverses how your department has used that statute against them?
We respect the Supreme Court. Whatever the court rules, we will act appropriately.
So you'll have to drop the charges if the Supreme Court says that you did that wrongfully.
I'm not going to answer hypotheticals. We'll wait and see what the Supreme Court says.
What do you say in response to D.C. Appellate Court overturning 2 excessive sentencing requests sought by your office?
I say that is the United States system of justice working. If people think that they have inappropriate sentences, they can appeal their sentences. That's the way our system works, and we respect the results.
So you've refused to answer questions before us, including my questions about January 6th on multiple occasions here in this committee, but the Inspector General is preparing a report. Are you in receipt of that report yet? He's promised to examine the role and activity of DOJ and its components in preparing for and responding to the events at the U.S. Capitol. Are you in receipt of that?
I'm not in receipt of any report. You'll have to ask the Inspector General.
Isn't it true that it will go to you before it's released for review?
I don't know about it will not go to me for review. The Inspector General is independent. I hope to see it before, but that's up to the Inspector General. Let me just remind you, I was not the Attorney General on January 6th.
Do we have your commitment to release that as soon as you see it?
The determination of the release of Inspector General reports is up to the Inspector General. We give them independence. Congress demands that we give them independence.
My time has expired, but we have your commitment not to slow down the release of that from the Inspector General.
Our Inspector General is a very independent person. There's no way I could stop him from doing what the law requires.
I yield back.